Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Darina, co-founder of Quo. If you run a business, you know the team that responds first wins the customer. You've probably opened your phone to a bunch of missed calls and no voicemails. Those are missed opportunities and exactly why we built Quo. Quo is the business phone system that helps your team handle every call and text right away. Join over 90,000 businesses that win more customers with Quo. Try Quo for free at quo.com/tech. That's quo.com/tech.
Hello and welcome to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Brooke Brigham, I'm the attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham, I'm the therapist.
And today we are going to be talking about the trial of Karen Read, which is currently still going on.
Mm-hmm.
This is a case that's in and around Boston, Massachusetts. And I don't know about the rest of the country. I mean, I'm obsessed with it, but the people in Boston are very obsessed, the whole state of Massachusetts.
I think a lot of people are obsessed with it. And I was doing a little reading real quick about like, why are we obsessed with it? And it's, I think, right, it's got all the elements of things that make a great John Grisham novel. Truly. Right. It is like a John Grisham. I mean, it's like if you took a step back and heard about the case, you're like, oh, that's a great, that would be a great show, or that would be a great movie. You wouldn't think that this is real, but it's real. So I think that's what grabs us.
Yeah. It's dividing the town of Canton, Massachusetts.
Oh, yes.
A lot of people are pro Karen Read. A lot of people are anti Karen Read. So, when I'm sure we'll be talking about this again when the trial is over, because the verdict in this trial is going to be very, very interesting.
Very interesting. Very telling.
To say the least.
Yeah. And I think this will impact things a lot to come, right? Because, well, this is a different thing, but the FBI is investigating the investigation, correct? So so there is going to be more.
There will be more to come. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to start out with a synopsis. And this is just kind of the basic setup of what the case is about. So 44-year-old Karen Read of Mansfield, Massachusetts, is on trial accused of murder and the death of her boyfriend of 2 years, 46-year-old John O'Keefe, a Boston police officer. Read worked as an equity advisor and was also an adjunct professor at Bentley University in Massachusetts, where she received a BA and an MA in finance. The couple did not live together, but Karen spent a lot of time at John's house where he was raising his niece and nephew after both of their parents died. They were 14 and 10, respectively, at the time of John's death. The events surrounding John's death took place in Canton, Massachusetts, 20 miles south of Boston. On January 28th, 2022, the couple went to a bar in Canton called The Waterfall. They were joined by fellow Boston police officers Brian Albert and Brian's sister-in-law, Jennifer McCabe. They were drinking heavily. A bartender at the Waterfall testified that he served Karen 6 vodka drinks. Based upon blood taken from Karen the next day, her blood alcohol level the night before is estimated to have been between 0.13 and possibly as high as 0.29.
Wow.
And John's blood alcohol level was estimated to be 0.21 to 0.28 at the time of death. The legal limit for driving under the influence is 0.08. Brian Albert invited the couple to go back to his house to continue the party. It was after midnight and Karen wanted to go home. The couple had been fighting. She dropped off John at Brian's house and then went back to John's house and fell asleep. She woke up at 4 a.m. and John was not home. She began to panic. There had been a heavy snowstorm the night before. She called John's phone multiple times, but no answer. Karen then called Jennifer McCabe, who along with another friend went over to John's house. The three women then drove to Brian Albert's house and found John lying near the side of the house covered in snow at 6 a.m. Karen tried to give him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Jennifer called 911. John was taken to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. There was a broken taillight on the back of Karen's car that aroused suspicion. Pieces of broken taillight were found in the snow near John's body, and microscopic fragments were found on his clothing. There was a dent and paint scratches on the bumper near the broken taillight on Karen's car. There are accounts from witnesses at the scene that Karen said, "I hit him." But Karen maintains that it was a question, "Did I hit him?" Karen has said that she doesn't remember dropping him off. The autopsy showed that John had 2 black eyes, cuts on his face and right arm, a fractured skull, a laceration on the back of his head, and his pancreas was red. The medical examiner found that the cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head and hypothermia. She did not rule the death to be a homicide. Because Brian and John were both Boston police officers, the department recused itself from the investigation, and the Boston State Police began the investigation. The same day John's body was found, the lead investigator, Trooper Michael Proctor, formed the opinion that Karen had hit John with her car and left him there to die. Proctor was also friendly with the Albert family. On February 2nd, 2022, Karen Reed was arrested for manslaughter and vehicular homicide. She was released on $50,000 bail. One of Karen's defense attorneys received an anonymous tip that John was inside the Alberts' home that night, and Brian and John got into a fight. And Brian and his nephew Colin, who arrived at the house around the same time as John, beat John unconscious, and then Brian and another friend who was at the house named Brian Higgins, who was a federal law enforcement agent for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, threw John out in the snow where he froze to death. The defense team's private investigator found a witness who corroborated this story and also said that Colin was there in the morning when John was found and that this had been withheld from the police. The police did not search the Albert home, nor did they seek a search warrant. The scratches on John's arm look like they may have come from an animal. The Alberts had a German Shepherd that they rehomed about a month after John's death. They also sold that home, which was Brian Albert's childhood home that he later purchased in April of 2023. Karen's car was left unattended for over an hour before it was taken into custody. Both Brian Albert and Brian Higgins got rid of their phones just days before being served with an order to preserve them as evidence. But police were able to determine that on January 29th, 2022, there were phone calls between them at 2:20 a.m. and 7:20 a.m. The grand jury later charged Karen Reed with second-degree murder. There's also an independent federal investigation into the handling of Reed's case. So that was a lot, but just scratching the surface, believe it or not.
Yeah. And I don't think you have the answer for this, but just hearing the synopsis, just hearing it all put together, I always come back to this question of all of these people were in law enforcement. You do know that they were going to get the records of your phones, right?
That's why they got rid of them.
But then they knew you could just get the, what is it called? Metadata or whatever. Like everyone knows that nothing we do is private anymore. Like there's some server somewhere that has all of the evidence on there.
Yeah, it's true. It depends. I don't fully understand how this works, but I know that sometimes when you get rid of a phone, there is a way to still retrieve texts from it. The phone calls are easy because the pinging from the cell towers and that kind of stuff is easy to get. You can get rid of the phone and still have records of that, but it's the text messages, you know? And so, sometimes you can retrieve things, but sometimes you can't, and it kind of depends on the kind of phone, and there are a lot of variables involved, but you're right. Just getting rid of your phone doesn't necessarily help, but it could, so why not?
If you're involved in a corrupt case, you might as well just, do all your things, cover all your bases, sell the house, get rid of the dog,
get rid of all the evidence, I mean,
and just hope for the best.
That's the thing. All of these things in isolation, you go, oh, okay. But the problem is that there are so many of these things.
Yes.
And so many of these things that it looks like a cover up. And so, before I started looking into this case myself, my main source of information about it was from Jodine Weber, who is a former FBI agent, and she has a Patreon, and she's on Kate Casey's podcast a lot. And now, of all people, you would think she's, former FBI, like that she would be very, skeptical of Karen Reed and all. But the way that she has covered this case is that she believes in this cover-up theory. And so obviously, well, again, given her experience, she's looking at it through the lens of, oh, I know how these investigations are supposed to go. And that is not happening here.
Yeah.
And there's all these mistakes being made, and there's obvious collusion and corruption. So if she thinks that, then, I was like, well, okay. And when I first started looking at stuff myself, I did find a few things where I'm like, well, I don't know. But then the more I looked into it, the more I was like, no, this is not right. It's not right.
So there is evidence that is very damning for Karen Reed, right? And the from what I've read, the most damning evidence is that right now with our cars, you can, everyone knows what is happening in your car all the time. It's crazy. So that they found that she had backed up. She has an Lexus SUV, right? That she had backed up 60 feet, right? Going 25 miles an hour, something like that. And they found on her bumper, right? Evidence like DNA of John.
Well, they found a hair.
Okay.
A hair that the terminology was that I believe that it could not be ruled out as, not being his. I'm not sure how definitive it was, but it was literally a hair. Like, there's no blood, on the back of the car. You basically have a hair, a broken taillight. But apparently I think there was DNA on the taillight that could have been John's DNA. But I mean, again, he rode in the car. He drove the car. He was around the car. But yeah, there was in the computer in the car, it showed that she had backed up, and then all of a sudden she backed up rapidly, and then the speed dropped, which is consistent with hitting something or someone, because then the velocity of hitting something is going to slow the car down. So that's just, one piece of evidence.
And then the other part of that too is the tail light, and that's also in dispute, right? That they found pieces of Karen's tail light at the scene, but that was a day after they discovered John. Like none of this was collected at the time because nothing was followed properly, right? No one secured the scene, no one, right? So we don't know if where, she apparently broke her taillight in her own garage from just getting worried about John and leaving suddenly.
Well, there's one on the ring cam at his house that shows her leaving, and she hits John. Looks like she hits his car. Taillight could have been broken then. We don't know when the taillight was broken, and I believe it wasn't found until after the snow melted, or it had snowed heavily that night, so it would have been covered in snow. Yeah, there's a lot of issues, but I think the overarching issue is that each one of these pieces of evidence is put into question because of the way that the police handled it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the integrity of the investigation and everything that happened puts all of this in question.
Yeah.
You know, so you could have a perfectly good explanation for the taillight on one side
Mm-hmm.
and a good explanation on the other side. Well, which side are you going to believe? You know, the side that's, you know, trying to cover everything up, or so.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll talk about more details of it, but we wanted to talk about just some overarching themes in this trial. And the first one has got to be misogyny.
Mm-hmm.
The way that, so the lead investigator, Michael Proctor, the way that he talks about Karen, within hours of him being, you know, put on this case, he is in a group text with some of his friends from high school.
And correct, you're not supposed to, when you're a police officer investigating something, right? You cannot you cannot share any of it with people, right?
You're not supposed to. You're only, especially sensitive details about an investigation. No, that's a I don't know what, I mean, the police have to have some canon of ethics or,
yeah, I mean, right.
Standards.
For you, right, you can't reveal what a client of yours has shared with you.
Yeah, but I mean, there's privileges that are, you know, attorney-client privilege and that kind of is very well defined. But, you know, a police officer, it's not like they can't tell anybody anything, but they have to basically tell people things on a need-to-know basis.
Yeah, you're not supposed to call your high school friends.
No.
You're supposed to text your high school friends. The high school friends didn't need to know.
No, there was no reason for it. And he's literally doing this while evidence is still being collected.
Yes.
And so, so these texts, basically, this is the crux of the case at this point, are these texts that show such bias. And anyway, so I'm just going to read some of these to put this all in context. So his friend, so specifically about Karen, he says to one of his friends, there will be some serious charges against the girl. And then the friend says, is she hot at least? Proctor says, from all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. She's a whack job, a cunt.
Okay. So now we're getting some of Michael's feelings about women.
Yeah.
So you are very, very casually throwing these things around. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And he must have known this from the other people like Brian Albert. And so just backing up a little bit, Karen had a couple of serious health conditions. She had Crohn's disease, where she had to get like 10 surgeries in 2 years and have her intestines reconstructed. And then she also later was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So then Proctor tells this guy, and Proctor, like I said, he could only have gotten this information from someone who knew Karen. He didn't know Karen. So they're already all talking about her. So Proctor said, she's a babe. She has a weird Fall River accent, though. But she has a leaky balloon knot. She shits herself. And then he also says, this is within hours of the death. He texted, Reed had zero chance of getting off. She's fucked. And then one of the friends says, I'm sure the owner of the house will get some shit. Proctor says, nope. Homeowner is a Boston cop, too.
Very revealing.
This is day one. This is literally like hours after he's been assigned to the case.
Yes. So he's basically walked in and he has done the thing that he absolutely is not supposed to do, which is confirmation bias. He just decided, these guys are my buddies. They're cops. This is a woman. She's an outsider. She probably, but I don't don't even know if he believes she did it. It was almost kind of like, well, this is direction. Well, the police can't be in trouble. So who else is left?
Who
Karen?
else was
Great.
left? Yeah.
Yeah.
Never mind that this happened at the home of a Boston police officer where other police officers had congregated the night before. And also Proctor's family knows the Albert family. They've socialized together many times. His sister Courtney was like in the wedding of someone in the Albert family. People babysat for each other. I mean, there was all kinds of crossover.
Yes.
Karen was a complete outsider. Complete outsider. She'd only been with John a couple of years. She didn't live with him. She lived, farther out. She was a professional. She had her life. And that's another thing. This woman, I didn't realize this has never really been talked about. She's very educated, very successful. She's a very attractive woman. And he's calling her a whack job, a nut job.
Yeah.
I think he calls all women whack jobs. He referred to the medical examiner as a whack job because she wouldn't rule the death a homicide.
Yeah. So when a woman kind of pushes up against him, then she's a whack job.
A whack job.
Which is, again, when you're a police officer, you have to hold yourself in a higher idealed state. I mean, right? Like, it's a job that you really have to walk in and, it's just awful.
And this is why there's a federal investigation, because actually one of the other state troopers, when he found out what Proctor was saying, he went and told his superior, and it went up the chain of command. And, good for him.
Yeah.
And then that's why now the feds are investigating how this is being investigated.
Which is good.
If it's fair. Yeah.
Because Proctor's making everybody look bad. Yeah. He's making the entire department, everybody look like this. And this isn't everybody, but it just takes one or two people and a little bit of power to create, for corruption.
Yeah. So they start this investigation with, it started, from the time that the police showed up at the Albert house. Like I said, they did not go inside the house. Ryan Albert did not come out of the house either.
Which is bizarre.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you are a police officer and all these police officers are in front of your house and you don't come out at all?
Right. And he claims he slept right through all the commotion of, Karen and the sister-in-law and the other woman arriving and finding him and doing CPR and calling 911 and the first responders. He claims that he and his wife and the dog slept through the whole thing. Yeah. And then at some point he woke up and he looked out the window and he's like, oh, I don't want to get involved. I'm going to stay right here.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of very telling things that don't make sense, that really don't make sense. But I think Proctor's comments alone, I mean, how can you not? He thought she was guilty before he even decided to investigate anything.
No, and
so that's a huge problem. Yeah, that's a huge, huge problem. And the way in which they investigated, right, like collecting things in red Solo cups and thing that, not securing the scene and not, exactly what Jody Weber's been talking about, which is not following protocol, not following this list of how you do things. And they knew better. So why are you not following this list? To me, that feels like reasonable doubt to me.
Oh, right? Yeah. I mean, yeah.
That feels like
Proctor's testimony alone is enough for reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
But you know how juries are. I mean, I don't know. I looked up this jury. The composition of this jury is interesting. So it's as of June 14th, there were 15 jurors. A couple of them, got let go for cause for some reason, but they have alternate. So it's like 12 plus, I guess now they're down to 3 alternates. And so it's 9 women and 5 men. So it's majority women. And when I was watching some clips of the trial and I got a glimpse of the jury who was actually in the jury box. But I only saw 10 people, but it was 8 women and 2 men. I don't know where this courtroom is very small, and there was some controversy about like where the jury was going to be able to fit and sit so they could all see the witnesses. So I don't know if they had to put 2 of the rest of them somewhere else. But anyway, it's a majority female jury.
And what's the background? Like, is it pretty like black, white, Hispanic?
It looked pretty white. It looked pretty white.
Okay.
They're from what I saw.
Yeah. And the other thing that's odd is, right, so this all happened in Canton, Massachusetts. So the trial is happening in Dedham, which is, if you look at a map, it's the next town north of Canton. Yeah. And that does not feel far enough away.
No,
at all. I mean, right? Like my guess would be for the OJ case, there's probably more mileage between Brentwood and downtown LA than there is from Canton to Dedham, or you know what I mean? It's just a little bit like that's how far you go. You just go to the next town north.
Well, I think they picked that courthouse because they needed a big courtroom, and it was the largest courtroom in the county, and it's still too small. Like the people are all crammed in there because you have all these lawyers on both sides. You've got reporters in there. You've got spectators. You've got the jury. So, but yeah, I mean, I think what you're bringing up is that, maybe this should have been like moved to somewhere completely different. Like, I don't know if there was a motion to change venue or not, but I think that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
You got to get it, really far.
But do you know this or not? Do you have to stay in the state of Massachusetts, though?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and that's the other problem, too, is Massachusetts. These are small states, I mean, in comparison to California, you can really move far. Yeah. The best that they could probably do is either go way out to Western Massachusetts, where UMass Amherst is, or maybe farther, or Springfield, right? Or go to Cape, on the Cape. I don't know, but that would be, that wouldn't make sense. So, and that's one of the other pieces of all of this, right? Is about how insulated and interconnected this group is, not only being cops, but just being in this small town, because it seems like they all were from this town. They were all grew up together. They all had these relationships. They were all part of this.
They're intermarried. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like this person is so-and-so's sister-in-law, and he's a cop and I'm a cop. And, yeah. And that's the whole clan nature of it.
Yeah. Because
clan is a group of close-knit and interrelated families. And that's exactly what this is. And the overlap of the police department, that's who they socialize with. It's all one.
And we've talked about this before about, strangers. And there's a great book by Malcolm Gladwell called Talking to Strangers that really talks about this. Why do we have such fear of people, or, people that we don't know? And it's because, our DNA is rooted in relying on social groups, for millions, hundreds and thousands of years. And, we needed each other in a way. Today, we don't need each other. You could live a solitary life. You could go off the grid. You could self-contained. But there was a time when if that was not possible, you could not make it on your own. And so you need the people in your social circle, and you need to be accepted by the people in your social circle. And there's something, when I think about this case, there's something so middle school about it, like this real basic, you're part of my group here. So whatever you say, I'm going to believe and trust. And then anything that comes outside of our circle, we're going to take everything they say and exaggerate it and highlight it and show you, see, that person's different. I don't like them. And, this is part of who we are. We as much as we evolve, our DNA and the way in which our brains and bodies work are really connected to survival. And just, so Proctor, right? Yes, his biases is just, it comes from this place of, these are my people. I need to protect these people. Of course she is bad. I'm not saying that the misogynistic comments in talking to his friends, I mean, that is, there's no excuse for any of that, but that going right to that place of, I understand the police, so therefore I see whatever you say I'm going to believe, and I don't know this Karen, so everything she says I'm not going to believe. That attitude.
Yeah, and like this thing with Proctor, I mean, it's much deeper than he's trying to portray it. So he's friends, like actually good friends with Brian Albert's brother, and Albert's brother Kevin. That's the one he's friends with. Albert's brother Kevin, and Kevin is a Canton police officer, and he was communicating with Proctor about the case, even though the Canton Police Department had recused itself. I mean, there's the myriad of relationships, based on this investigation is just very strange. But going back to the jury too, with the Proctor thing, there was a reporter who was in the courtroom when the texts came out, was watching the jury's reaction, which is, mostly female jury. And the reporter said that, like people were gasping.
Yeah.
Like, one woman had her mouth like open, like dramatically, visibly open. One woman was looking around, looking at the other female jurors, like trying to catch their gaze. One woman laughed. They reacted.
Oh, yeah. They reacted. I read about that. Yeah. And I swear, if I was a juror, that's how I am too. I don't really have much of a poker face, because I think I too my mouth would have dropped open and been like, what? Huh? Yeah. Yeah. So this Proctor testimony, not good. Not good at all. And I'm curious too, the prosecution would there's so many more women on this trial, on the jury. I'm surprised, right? You would think that they would maybe want to make it a little bit more balanced versus having so many women, knowing that this stuff is going to come out.
But it doesn't really work that way with picking a jury. Sometimes it's not like you can say, well, I want to have more women or more men or more this or more that. You get what you get.
Yeah. No, I understand that.
You get who shows up, and then depending on what they answer and how they answer, you have to have a reason. I mean, you get peremptory challenges where you can get rid of people for no reason. But then at a certain point, you use those up. And if you're still not satisfied, you don't have enough men or women or whatever, you have to have an actual reason to get rid of them. And it's very hard.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's true. It's true. I mean, yeah, I understand that, because the jury pool is the jury pool. Like whomever shows up, and then these are the people, and you have a certain number of challenges, and you've got to be very mindful about how you're going to use them. It's just interesting to me. It's just surprising that that's how it leaned.
So, yeah. And another common thing in this case, all the calling and the texting and John's niece and nephew actually testified at the trial.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they didn't televise it, but they did testify. And so, like, the niece was saying that, their relationship was good in the beginning, but it was not good at the end. And there was a lot of fighting. And there was like a big fight that happened on a family vacation the year before or something. And actually, the night that this happened, the niece was home alone. I mean, at the time she was like 14, but she was home alone. I don't know where the nephew was.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's awoken at like 4:30 in the morning by Karen, who's saying, oh, your dad's not here, and she's trying to call him. And between the time that she dropped him off at the Albert house until his body was found, she called him like 53 times.
Yes, I heard about that. Yeah.
And left messages. Some of the messages were from the night before, and they were nasty messages like, fuck you. And, they were fighting.
Yeah.
They were fighting about not sure what, but they had been fighting and texting and the relationship was breaking down.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not good. And then she had accused him of maybe cheating on her. And now this is very interesting. She, in the weeks before John's death, had kind of been doing some flirty texting with Brian Higgins.
Yes, the ATF guy.
Yes, there that night. And so far we haven't seen those. I hope she has them on her phone.
Mm-hmm.
Because that would give a motive for this fight.
Mm-hmm.
If John walks in and Brian is there, and I don't know, John says something to him about, I think he knew about these texts.
Yeah.
Then that would have been a motive for a fight. And another interesting fact is that Karen says, did you watch that Nightline interview?
No, I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I do want to watch it.
Yeah, she went on Nightline. This was probably around the time of the preliminary hearing. And she did an interview, and she said that so when they were on their way and there's a lot of drinking and driving.
Yeah, I want to talk about this drinking and driving stuff because
we'll talk about that.
I want to discuss that. Keep going.
Yeah, when we get to the some of the legal issues. So they drive from the bar to Brian Albert's house, and Karen is saying, were we really invited? Because they weren't really close. John and Brian knew each other, but they weren't particularly close. And Karen didn't feel like they were actually invited back, or like they were part of the
Mm-hmm.
group, because they aren't. They're kind of outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was nervous about it. She didn't really want to go. So she pulls up and she sends him up to the door. This is her account. To kind of feel it out and see. And he was supposed to text her back or something and let her know. So she said she sat out in her car for like 10 minutes or something. And she was waiting for a text from him or something. And then he never responded. And then she just left. So she says he went in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else is saying, no, he was never inside the house. Never saw him, So anyway, that's her.
Yeah. And there's no way to really figure any of that out of like who's telling the truth.
Well, there was some evidence of, again, with the cell phone and what time, I think it was like 12:24. His cell phone pinged at Brian Albert's house, but I don't think they could tell if it was inside the house or outside the house, because it's only a matter of a few feet.
Yeah. Well, the thing too is, I saw some pictures of the Albert's home, and, every Massachusetts and New England, it's so different than out here, right? Like people have these much bigger yards and the houses are farther apart. It's more of the suburbs, right? So the houses are farther apart. But I was like, someone across the street doesn't have a Ring camera. Like nobody has a camera or anything anywhere near to see when the car pulls up, right? When her car pulls up, or does he walk into the house? I mean, I guess not. I guess it's that isolated.
Or there is evidence and it was gotten rid of.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
Okay. That could have happened too. Huh. All right. This is one piece, because I've also been listening to Jody Weber on Kate Casey and been reading and going down Reddit rabbit holes. And so what's the situation with Colin? So Colin is the son of Brian Albert?
The nephew.
Okay. So he's the nephew of Brian Albert. And there's this dispute about whether or not Colin was there. But Colin apparently has his hands are all, looks like he got into a fight. He's got a bunch of cuts on his knuckles, and I read that somewhere. Is that so? If
I haven't.
If you have not seen that, then maybe I got that wrong.
Well, I think at the very least, the Alberts do not want him a part of this at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They're trying to protect him.
Yeah. So,
but why are you trying to protect him?
Yes. So, is there a history between Colin and John?
That's what I'm not sure about, because I thought that I heard Jody say that there was some kind of bad blood or beef between them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know why. Like I said, John was kind of an outsider who wasn't particularly close to this family. And so I don't know how he would have a beef with Brian's nephew.
Yeah, I mean, they're 20 some odd years apart in age.
Yeah.
I doubt Colin's interested in Karen. You know what I mean? Like, there's not, right. It would seem that, so I'm just kind of curious about him.
Maybe, I think they're trying to protect him.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe if he has some wounds on his hands, maybe he got involved in the fight in some way. But because of that, they wanted to. They basically did not disclose, which is kind of a lie. I mean, It's a lie. It's a lie by omission, non-disclosure. When asked who was at the house that morning, they did not say that Colin was there.
Yeah, but he was there, apparently, right?
I believe so, and I'm not sure what the evidence is that. Yeah, and then you've got Colin's family. They've all got this timeline. That's another thing that's suspicious, is that this whole family, they all have a timeline that they've all rehearsed clearly, because everyone's the same time. And I'm sorry, who remembers what time it is when you've been drinking?
Yes. Very much so.
Who remembers?
Right?
Because they were drinking at the bar, then they went back to the Alberts' house and drank some more, and then his wife, Nicole, was there. She was drinking. His adult children were there. They were drinking. Everybody's drinking. Yet they all seem very clear that Colin left at 12:10.
Yeah.
And sometimes their rigid timeline bites them in the ass.
Oh, yeah. Because there were, when a lot of them got up to testify, it was a lot of, I don't know, I can't recall, 12:10, he left at 12:10, right? So this whole night of drinking, and I can see if it was a whole night of drinking and you just say, I can't remember anything, like it's bits and pieces. But yeah, the 12:10 really bites them in the ass, because it's like, if you cannot recall anything, how can you all recall that it was 12:10? Like, did Colin go, well, it's 12:10, everybody. Gotta go. Bye. It's 12:10. It's 12:10. I gotta go. That's the time I leave parties. Can we talk about the drinking?
Yeah.
So listen, I am not here to judge anybody what you do on your Friday, Saturday night, drinking, whatever. Why are you all getting in cars? I mean, I'm sorry. I'm not okay with Karen driving. I'm not okay with any of these.
None of them.
You're all police officers. You pull people over all the time for DUIs. I can imagine you've seen the devastation of someone who has hit someone else. Why in God's name are all of these people drinking and driving? And those alcohol limits, I was kind of gasping when you said it, because those are high.
They are
That's
high.
Really, really
That's like blacking out, passing out.
Brown out, which is where you're kind of half in, half out. Like, you're not completely out, but you can remember a few things. That is so dangerous and just irresponsible. And again, that comes back to your police officers. Your police officers.
You arrest people for this.
You should be at the person who says absolutely not. There's no Uber in Canton? I find that hard to believe. There's nobody?
I think it's just the way they've always done it. I don't know.
But I think that is part of like this kind of, the sense that we're getting this, a little bit of this good old boys thing.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this yesterday, was because I've been watching, I don't know if people out there are watching this show too, on Paramount, called Mayor of Kingstown. And it's with Jeremy Renner, and I'm somewhere mid season 2. But the show is about this sort of fictional town in Michigan where there's 9 penitentiaries in this certain mile radius. And so everyone's connected to the prisons, and Jeremy Renner plays kind of this fixer. And again, the show's got some flaws. Like, as a fixer, I love Jeremy Renner, great actor, but his character, Mike, is not a great fixer. He keeps screwing things up. And I'm not quite sure why we're all entrusting him. So anyway, but one of the things that's brought up in the first season is the fact that, these guards are the ones bringing in the drugs. They're violating the civil rights of the prisoners. They're taking this attitude of, and the way in which the guards talk about the people in prison is they're scum. They don't deserve anything. They don't deserve anything. And one of the characters who is a gang leader, he's like, listen, when I'm on the street and gang banging, there's a code, we're all in it together. We know what the code is. We understand these pieces, but it's very clear. But here you are where we're the bad people. We're bad because we committed crimes, but we're being punished by people that are also committing crimes, right? This kind of idea of, well, we're police officers, so therefore we're above the law or above, you're scum because you got caught. I mean, right. It's a little bit of this, perplexing thing of, and I like the fact that this show, Mayor of Kingstown, is bringing this up and really pointing this out, which is how dare these police officers take this attitude like you're less than. And I think there's this other part of it too of, how we treat people, how we, you commit a crime and therefore you're a bad person. And then this police officer over here, which a lot of these guys have retained their jobs, right? Is Proctor still a police officer? I mean,
he retired. I'm not sure if I think it was after this incident.
And Brian Albert retired.
No, I mean, I thought you were talking about Albert. Yeah.
No,
Albert
Proctor
retired. Proctor, no, I think he's still working.
So here we go. We see this behavior and it's like, okay, well, there we go. Let's just keep moving forward. Right.
Well, yeah, and how are you supposed to trust? Yeah. How are you supposed to trust the police after seeing all this?
Yes.
I mean, it's going to make tensions worse because it's really, this isn't good. We already have the trust in the police is already at a low,
yes.
low at this point. And then all these cases, like the George Floyd case and cases like this, all these, it doesn't help. And so then it just makes the divide between the public and the police even bigger.
And then I think I could see what happens is less people who maybe want to become police officers. Do you know what I mean? It's a shame because there are so many good police officers out there who do care and do want to do the right thing and do want to see change happen. But I'm fearful that those people aren't going to keep stepping up to want to do this job, that they're going to run in the opposite direction.
Yeah, like if someone has good intentions, they're not going to want to work with these people.
Yes. And so who wins in all of this? You know? I don't know. That whole thing just drives me crazy. I'm all about justice and fairness, and that doesn't seem right. And the judgment that people have for other people of like this Proctor guy, like, oh, well, she shits herself. It's like, I'm sorry.
Like, I'm sure you have some issues that aren't,
the best
either.
Yeah.
Everybody does. Like, just
the judgment of just how quickly. And that's why I'm saying it's so middle school. It feels like, has anyone not evolved into adulthood of, hey, looking at someone and seeing them as a whole person and not just, oh, she's gonna, she's okay.
She's a babe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cute, babe. Psych Legal Pop will be right back after these messages.
Hey there, it's Tess Brigham, the therapist half of Psych Legal Pop. In addition to being a therapist, I'm also a coach, speaker, and author. And if you go to my website, you'll find courses, ebooks, and worksheets for sale. If you're feeling a bit lost, overwhelmed by life's twists and turns, or you're just simply stuck, I've got you covered. Head over to my website, www.tessbrigham.com, for courses, ebooks, and worksheets tailored to help you unlock your true potential. From relationship struggles to career transitions, I'm here to guide you every step of the way. So stop looking outside of yourself at friends, family, social media for the answers. The answers to all your questions are inside of you. My products and services are the first step in uncovering your true you.
Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, okay, so one of the big... the $64,000 question here is if he wasn't beat up and, thrown outside to die in the snow, what if he didn't make it into the house?
Mm-hmm.
What happened before that?
Mm-hmm.
Because he didn't just freeze to death. He was injured prior to that.
Mm.
So, there's a couple different theories. I mean, obviously the working theory with the police is that she backed up, hit him with her car, and he was thrown some feet back. Now, this is another thing. When he left the bar, he brought his drinking glass with him.
Yeah, open container. That's also illegal. I don't know in Massachusetts, but it's illegal in California, right?
So he gets out of Karen's car with this cocktail glass in his hand.
Yeah.
And when he is found, he still has the cocktail glass.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it was in his hand or next to his hand. So, okay, there's a couple questions here. If he was struck and thrown back, wouldn't that glass have gone, sailing off somewhere else?
Well, because a shoe came off.
Yeah, shoe came off.
Which happens, I guess, when people, right? That's pretty common. Yeah, shoes
when you're struck by a car. Yeah, so the shoe comes off, but the cocktail glass is still there. And if he had gone inside the house and gotten beat up, he wouldn't have the cocktail glass. And unless they planted it.
Mm-hmm.
They could have planted it there. He could have come inside the house with the glass. And when they're, concocting their story, they could have taken the glass and put it in his hand, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, and and then there's some dueling. This whole case is like a case of dueling experts. You have experts on one side saying one thing, experts on the other side saying something else. So everyone's opining about what could have happened. So another thing is about his injuries. So he has no injuries really from the neck down, except those scratches on his arm, which may or may have not come from from their dog.
Mm-hmm.
There's expert testimony about that because I guess they sampled the DNA and they couldn't find any canine DNA on those scratches.
And I'm sorry, does John O'Keefe have a dog?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I haven't read anything about that, but I'm just curious if you've seen that. Okay.
That's a good question. But, and then you have another expert. You have a defense expert who just testified on Friday that, based on her experience, this was done by an animal. So when did that happen? Did that happen inside the house or outside the house? Because Brian Albert claimed that the dog was never outside, that the dog went out one time
to pee or something and came back in.
Came right back in. So if that's his testimony, then the dog was inside the house the whole time. So if there was an attack by a dog, it would have happened inside the house.
Well, the other thing too is, so if if things happen the way they're saying they're happened, that Karen and John were in this fight, he gets out. She's so angry, she backs up into him. Wouldn't he scream or go, or, have a reaction or something?
Not necessarily.
Wouldn't you hear that? I mean, I guess if you're partying in the house, maybe you don't hear that. It just seems like a lot happening outside your home for nobody in the house to hear it.
Right. It would be a big thud.
Yeah.
It kind of sounded like you probably would have heard the tires, because according to the info in her car, she backs up really fast, hits something, and then takes off. So I feel like there'd be noise from the tires. And also there was a fire hydrant there, and that's where the fragments of the taillight, the fragments of the taillight are everywhere.
Yeah.
But there was some fragments by this fire hydrant. So the theory is she didn't hit John, she hit the fire hydrant, or maybe she could have done both. I don't know. If she hit the fire hydrant, it probably seemed like it would have exploded if that was if she hit it really hard. I don't know. But yeah, the point is that there's dueling theories about, so there's this one guy, this trooper, he was really such a dummy. He's the one who's testifying about all of this. I think it's Trooper Joseph Paul. He's their crash analyst, but all he has is an AA degree in administration of justice.
Well, is he certified in anything? Did he get like a crash analysis certification? Go to some training or anything?
I don't know what his training. I don't know, because the lawyer was asking him, "Do you have any training or education in physics?" Or
yeah, that's actually a good question. Yeah,
anything that would no.
Jesus.
And he's the one who said that the vehicle slowed in reverse, indicating a pedestrian strike. But then he also said, they were talking about the point of impact, and he was saying that the point of impact was by the side of the road. And the attorney went through this whole analysis with him about, okay, well then that means he would have had to have been thrown like something like 30 feet or more. And there's no evidence that he was thrown 30 feet. He's got the cocktail glass in his hand. I mean,
that cocktail glass, I'm sorry, I don't have any proof of this, but it's got to be planted, right? Because it had to, if you got struck by a car, there's no way you would keep gripping that in your hand. And then if the defense is right, he still wouldn't have the cocktail glass in his hand. I mean, the whole thing seems so odd, and it's almost like someone went, "Wait, he left the bar with a cocktail glass. Go get it. Where is it? Okay, great. Here, smash it. Put it down." Right? It's one of those things where you're like, that makes no sense.
Yeah, and so the defense is saying that the point of impact is the fire hydrant. That's where the taillight was broken, and she just hit it because she was drunk. She was driving drunk. She hit the fire hydrant on the way out. And she actually did a 3-point turn. There's something about a 3-point turn that's like, well, 3-point turn is kind of inconsistent with her backing up to hit him.
Yeah.
Because one or the other.
Yeah, because if you make a 3-point turn, that's like a K turn, right? If you do that, you're like going into a driveway and back around.
Yeah, you're going away from the house.
She would see him again.
Well, she claims, in her Nightline interview, she watched him walk in the house, and after 10 minutes of waiting and no response, she just left.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the other part of all of this that's so hard is everyone's drunk.
Yeah.
Like, it's really hard to know what happened because everyone is drinking so heavily and driving.
I don't think she even knows.
Yeah.
Because the niece was testifying that, when she woke her up at like 4 a.m, she was pacing around. She was trying to put things together. I think she woke up suddenly, realized he wasn't there, probably had some memories floating around, but doesn't have a clear memory of much, and is trying to put things together. And she was asking the daughter to call him because she knew he was mad at her. So he probably wouldn't have picked up her call. But if not the daughter, the niece, but if the niece called, then he might pick up. And she's saying stuff like, what if he was hit by a car? What if he was hit by a snowplow? What if, she was like, all these things are swirling around. She doesn't know what happened.
Yeah. Which doesn't sound like a guilty person because, right, in order to be convicted of the second, she's on trial for second degree murder. So
and the lesser ones too.
Yeah. And so it is possible for them to say, we don't think she intended to do this, but she was driving drunk. And by simply the act of driving drunk, there is a little bit of like,
it's breaking the law.
It's breaking the law.
So,
yes.
Okay. So here's for intent. So a second degree murder, you have to show intent. So second degree murder is the intentional killing without premeditation, but you're doing something that is intentional and very likely to be fatal. So it's like shooting a gun into a crowd.
Yes.
It's like reckless disregard for whatever so if she hits him with her car, she has to have the intent of hitting him if it's going to be second degree murder.
Can I ask a quick question? So can you say that just her getting in the car intoxicated is intent?
Well, that would, no.
Okay.
That would be, so like the other two things she's charged with are involuntary manslaughter and vehicular homicide. Those don't require any intent.
Okay.
So
she could be convicted of one of those.
Yes. So involuntary manslaughter is you don't intend to do anything, but you're acting negligently or recklessly. And then vehicular homicide is just basically doing something illegal or careless that causes death. So between those two, I think they could probably do that. But second degree is a real stretch because you have to prove that she wanted to kill him. And them fighting or whatever, I don't think is enough to want to kill him.
Yes.
She wanted to be in the relationship. I think he was trying to pull away from her. Like, because in these texts, she's kind of pushing him like, well, does this mean it's over? You don't want to be with me? But he won't say that. He just kind of says, well, I don't want to talk about this. And it's kind of like he's got his foot halfway out the door. But she's trying to get a read on him of like, okay, well, are we breaking up or what's happening? But she didn't want to break up.
So is it possible for the jury to say, yes, we believe there's corruption and there was cover up. And at the same time, though, she drove drunk and that's.
Yeah. I mean, that
involuntary manslaughter and the fact that she drove drunk, that this happens. I mean, again, even if she didn't intend to, I would assume, right, there are drunk driving cases where people are like, wait, what? I hit something, because they're so out of it.
But they would still have to prove that she actually hit him and not just hit the fire hydrant.
Got it. And they cannot. And so they have to prove that she hit him.
Right.
Got it.
It's not that, because she still has to do the act that actually kills him. So the question is, what killed him? Was it being struck by her car or was it being beat up inside the house?
Got it.
Yeah. So like intoxication, it can be a defense, even to a specific intent crime, as long as it goes to the intent element. So the second degree, that's specific intent. So yeah, the intoxication in that case actually helps her, in a weird way.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
She have to form the intent, Yeah. It's so, the best you can do is a no intent manslaughter. But again, you still have to prove that his death was a result of being hit by a car that she was driving.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's so interesting too is, I know you don't have to have motive to prove, but, people like to know what the motive, it helps. And people like to know, it helps them form the thought, the story in their mind. It's just how much everybody was drinking I don't think it would take much, right? If John said something offhand, or if Brian Higgins said something offhand, right? Like, I don't know if one of the prosecution's arguments is no one had a problem with John, like, she's the only one that seemed to have a motive. It's a little bit of like, well, I don't know, everybody's drinking. Like, all it takes is one comment.
Right.
And enough people, a drunk man, and you were all beating him, and then being like, oh crap, we went too far.
Right.
Well, let's throw him outside.
Well,
I mean, kind of,
Look, people die this way all the time. They are, they fall, they might drunk or not. If you fall backwards and you hit your head hard enough, fracture your skull. A fractured skull doesn't happen from a fight. You have to you have to fall and hit your head very, very hard. And that's what causes the bleeding. That's what causes the black eyes. I think, it's possible that he was inside the house and stumbling around and something happened. Maybe things did get heated and he fell down the stairs or something. Did you see that there was a video showing, I guess they were all in the story is they were in the basement drinking or something. And there's these stairs that are very, excuse me, like treacherous looking stairs, like very narrow, very steep, going from the basement up to this door that led out into the yard.
Yeah.
So he's trying to leave. He falls down the stairs, cracks his head open at the bottom of the stairs. And all of a sudden you've got this dead guy in your basement.
Yeah. And then maybe you panic.
Yeah.
Which is real, right? Like, again, why do you have these really narrow stairs and then saying we should start drinking and go up and down them? I mean, but yeah, it is possible that it could have been that there was no fight at all, that like something happened and, he got into an argument and got mad and he just boom, hit his head. But there's a part of me that feels like if it was truly that innocent, why not just call the cops? Like, why stage this elaborate cover up? There's got to be, listen, in my opinion, this is not a fact. Right. This is my opinion, that if it was really innocent, I mean, listen, it's a good old boys network. If it was innocent, they would all been like, okay, sure, let's go. And they would have kept going. I mean, it would have been fine. It wouldn't have been a big deal, but it had to have been something like that. It had to have been something really egregious. And then, for that to happen, for them to want to risk everything by covering everything up and go to these lengths of getting everyone together and getting everyone's timelines
getting
together.
the story straight. Yeah. No, you're right. I don't know. This is so it is a mystery. It's interesting. I'm trying to think of what else
there's one other thing that I was curious about. So I know that one of the big things is Jennifer McCabe, and at what time does she type or Google the phrase?
Oh, yeah.
How long to be in the cold until you die? Yeah. Now, and this goes back to this, right? Like this technology that we use to determine what time messages are actually, or like what time is she actually Googling that? And so I'm a little confused about that, because the defense is saying that she did that at like 2:00 in the morning, and that proves that she knew he was out there. And Jennifer McCabe's saying, no, my computer was on and I actually typed that in at 6:00 in the morning or something to that effect. And so, but I would think with all the technology, isn't it very clear? Like, why is that an argument? Like,
I don't know, but they have dueling experts. You have an expert on the defense side who's saying that, no, that's when the search occurred, was 2:27 a.m. And then you have an expert on the prosecution side that's saying, no, that's just the time that they opened the browser and to search for something else. And then later came back to that browser and searched that at 6:30 in the morning, which she claims Karen asked her to Google that, which seems strange. Your boyfriend is dead. You're telling your friend, can you please Google this for me? Because at 6:30 in the morning, they had just gotten there. They got there around 6 or 6:05. They try to resuscitate him. They call 911. So at that point, why is she asking Jennifer to Google this.
Yeah. It's a weird thing to Google, whether it's 2:00 in the morning or 6:00 in the morning. It's kind of a strange point at which you're going to do that. But there's no way for us to tell whether, like, what time those things were typed into the computer. We seem to know how to know how to figure out everything that people are doing. Right. So how is it that this is something that seems like it shouldn't be in dispute? But I guess it is.
Apparently it is. Apparently there's different theories on when these things get time stamped, or, and there's different methods of doing it. And I don't understand any of it, but you have two experts who are qualified as experts, because you have to qualify for someone to give an expert opinion. They have to qualify as an expert. So you have to prove to the court that they're sufficiently qualified, that they have the training, the education, the knowledge, the whatever. So the judge found both of these people qualified experts, and they each have a different opinion.
Wow.
So it happens all the time. That's the crux of litigation. You have someone on one side who's saying one thing, and then someone on the other side saying the opposite. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what to make about that. Oh, but speaking of, did we already talk about this? About the phone calls, the destroying the phone, and with Brian and Brian. Well, apparently, so Brian Higgins kind of stopped responding to Brian Albert after a while, and I think Brian Albert was getting a little paranoid, like maybe he'd flipped on him or something. And so Brian Albert asked his brother, who is a Canton police officer, to contact Higgins and see, like, try to feel him out to see if he had flipped or not.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what came of that, but I did read that.
Is that a fact? Like, he specifically asked the brother? Is that written down somewhere? Or did he text it to him? Because these people seem to text everything.
I don't know. I read it in this trial coverage, so it must have come out. Someone must have said something about it. Like, why was, or maybe someone asked the brother, the Canton police officer, why did you contact Brian Higgins? I don't know. And then all the phone calls, they all explain, when they're asked, well, why are you calling this person? Why are you calling? And they're all like, well, it was a butt dial.
Which we all know. Come on. I don't think I've ever butt dialed anybody in my life, no matter what phone I've had. But how do you butt dial do we know what kind of phones they have? Or do they all have iPhones or smartphones?
Oh, I'm sure they do. Yeah. And the smartphone, the screen is locked after, a certain number of minutes or whatever. Yeah, and there was expert testimony about that. About whether or not, this butt dialing thing is credible, like whether or not it could actually happen. Like,
and so there's experts on both sides too, telling us about butt dialing. Yeah. So do you know what the expert who says, yeah, you can butt dial, how do they explain that?
Well, I mean, I guess if your phone is open to the phone app, and the screen lock doesn't come on, I guess in theory. But you know what? Also, here's another thing. Nobody. People are just more careful with their phones now. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I think it's a stretch.
Yeah. I mean, it just, in order for them to butt dial, you're right. The phone had to be unlocked. It had to be on the phone app. And this person has to be the last person that you're calling. So how do you butt dial several people? Like, I would think you could only really butt dial the last person you talk to. And once you butt dialed someone, you're like, oops, I've butt dialed them. Maybe I should stop drinking or put my phone away. Or something, right? Like, the butt dial stuff makes no sense. That makes no sense. I don't believe that. I really don't.
Yeah, well,
I really don't.
Anyone can, I guess, try to corroborate anything. Each side has an expert who will say whatever. So the defense case just started, like I said, on Friday, and they had the dog bite dog attack expert. And then they had a couple experts about the 247 search, Google search that was Friday. And then they had the guy, there was a snowplow driver. And so on that night, he drove by the first time at about 2:45.
Mm-hmm.
And he says he did not see a body outside of the house.
Mm.
And then the next time he came by, between 3:15 and 3:30, he saw a Ford Edge parked on the side of the road near the Alberts home, which was not there before.
Mm.
And he said it was unusual for them because he knows the family.
Of course. Is he related to them in some way, shape, or form?
He's probably been to a barbecue at their house. No, he knows the neighborhood. He knows who they are. And he said it was unusual that they would park a car on the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was Albert's car, actually. It's Ford Edge. So
okay, that was my next question. Whose car is that?
It's Albert's car. So in the middle of the night, between 2:45 and 3:15, 3:30, he gets up
and
parks moves his car to the side of the road.
Yeah. And then goes back into the house and falls into the deepest sleep ever with his German Shepherd.
He didn't hear anything after that.
Well, but I will say, I will say that at one point in our lives, our dog slept through. There was remember there was a fire across the street from our house? And because we lived in the back, Steve, myself, Max, and our dog Rocco, our first pug, all slept through everything. And Mom, when we finally left the house and walked out, Mom's like, how could you have slept through this? Like, I've been up all night. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, we didn't know what was going on, but pugs are not very instinctual.
No.
So, I mean, dogs can sleep through things. I've had a dog that did it, but he was like in a crate and, we were way in the back. But so I'm not saying that a dog couldn't sleep through that, but I have two dogs now that still pugs that, God, someone breathes heavy walking down our street. They both go crazy all the time. Mm-hmm. So I just find it hard to believe that the dog wouldn't be barking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With all the action.
Another thing the snowplow driver said was that at 5:30, I don't know how many times he goes down the street. I guess.
Yeah. They're good slope. They really.
Well, there was a storm
there. Yeah.
It was a nor'easter that night. So he goes by again at 5:30. And that's when he said he saw first responders at the house. The road was blocked off. John's body was not found by Karen until 6 a.m. But
wait, huh?
Yeah. He says, I mean, he could be off. His time could be off, but he says that at 5:30, the first responders were there, but Karen did not arrive at the house until 6 o'clock. Now, we haven't heard, obviously Karen has not testified. So this timestamp of 6:05 has to come from Jennifer McCabe, and who is the sister-in-law of Brian Albert.
Yeah.
So who do you believe? Who can you believe?
I don't know. And that's the thing. I don't know. I mean, it sounds like a giant, something got covered up. For sure. Something is covered up. And I personally think the combination of the cover up and the fact that things were not done properly and the misogynistic text messages, I feel like is enough to say, you've got, that's reasonable doubt.
I know.
And whether or not you think she's guilty or not, there's too much reasonable doubt. And it's because the police did not follow procedure. And is that, if Karen really did that, is that fair? Well, this is our system. And I think it comes back to this idea of people want, they get so tunnel vision of justice. I want justice. And this person has to pay for these actions. And it's a little bit of like, but we have to keep following no matter what you feel about someone, no matter what it is, we have these processes and procedures in place for a reason. And we have to, everyone deserves fairness in that way. Even if you feel like what they did was unfair, doesn't mean that we then react unfairly.
Right. And also it doesn't mean we think that they're, innocent.
Yes.
Like, people who criticize us about, Scott Peterson. I can't believe you think he's innocent. I never said that.
Yeah. We
never said that. We never said we thought we were questioning whether or not he got a fair trial. That's
yes.
all. God.
And everyone deserves that. Everyone deserves that. And no matter what someone has done, they still deserve to be treated like a human being, and they still deserve, all of those things. And it's just like, but it's this craziness, this desire, I think, in our country, like we just want eye for an eye all the time. And it's like, but that leaves everyone, yes, we all want the pound of flesh. And it's like, but eye for an eye leaves us all blind that you have to be better. You have to be, better than that.
Well, a couple more things about, because the jury, obviously juries are always wild cards, and juries scare me. But so I think some interesting observations, because appearances matter. These lawyers she has are kick-ass.
Yeah.
They are confident. So this guy, Alan Jackson, so he's a former prosecutor. He prosecuted Phil Spector. Who, the music producer who it was some sex related.
Oh yeah. He murdered the girl.
Yeah. But there was also I think a rape and murder. Anyway.
Yes.
And then after he left the prosecutor's office, he's from Los Angeles. He started defending criminal defendants. He was Kevin Spacey's lawyer. And he got an acquittal on that case, but he also represented Harvey Weinstein, which didn't go so well. But, and then, so he's he exudes confidence, and, he's a very good lawyer. And then he's working with this guy, David Yannetti, who's out of Boston, who's also a very good lawyer. And the assistant district attorney for Norfolk County is this guy, Adam Lally. And he's not very impressive. His questioning is not he's not good at asking questions a lot of times. I've seen some of the courtroom testimony. So the jurors, they latch onto that. Also, Karen Reed presents very well. She's always dressed impeccably. She's calm, even when bad stuff is being introduced. She's keeping a poker face. So all of those things go into it, and the demeanor of the witnesses. The Alberts were not very good witnesses. I didn't think. It was a lot of, I don't know, I don't remember. Oh, the guy, Brian Albert, he was the subject of a TV show. It was called Boston's Finest, because he was part of some elite team that apprehended, the most violent criminals in Boston. And so there was a reality show about their team. And he's testified in many, he said he testified in court, at least 100 times in his career. Yet when he gets on the stand to answer for himself, it's like, I don't know.
I butt dialed them.
I bet it was a butt dial.
I was asleep.
I don't know. Yeah. All of a sudden he's just like, I don't know. So the jurors are going to, they're going to judge all these people. Everyone's going to be judged. It's more than just the evidence. There's a lot going on here.
Yes. And so how has she, obviously she seems to have done well for herself, but I can imagine these two attorneys. I mean, he's representing Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey, but these attorneys must be expensive. How is she paying for all of this?
Well, I know that there was a legal defense fund set up by her lawyers. And the last figure I saw, it had raised about almost $500,000. And then I think her family has money because her father, who's her main support person, he gave her the money to get out, to bail out of jail. So, I mean, maybe there's help from him. And yeah, I think she must have some assets. She's been working her whole, in a high level. She's been working for a long time. So I'm sure she has some assets.
But this also brings up another issue, which is if Karen was not educated or didn't have family friend, like didn't have help, she would be using someone else and she probably wouldn't be getting this defense. That's the other part of it too, of just how unfair a lot of this is, that money does,
it does. And that's not
gets you the best.
A lot of public defenders are very good lawyers.
Mm-hmm. They just don't have the resources.
They don't have the resources. And also like you're not their only client. They have a lot of clients. They have limited resources, and they're often not the kind of personalities that juries like to see. Mm-hmm. So if you have money, you can pick the most dynamic defense lawyer in the country. Mm-hmm. You go, okay, who really is very dynamic and it's going to get through to this jury? And, because this guy's from California. Jackson. And, I think Johnny Cochran, no matter what you think of the evidence, the guy is confident. The guy was, RIP, very captivating.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God, Johnny Cochran. I mean, nobody could come up with a line better than Johnny Cochran. No. I mean, come on, if it doesn't fit, you must have quit. I mean, right? Like, to this day, everybody knows that saying. Yeah. So, but this is another sort of problem with our justice system is that it does favor people who have money, just as all parts of our system does. Yeah. So
as such as life.
Yes. Okay. But wow. Yeah. I mean, I really, I'd been listening to the Jodi, like I said, the Jodi coverage, and, obviously I'm here accusing Proctor of being biased. And so I too, wanted to come into this, with okay, let me see everything and not just make assumptions. And not just assume that she's innocent or being framed, but the more things come out, it's just like, I'm not seeing enough from the prosecution. Do you know what I mean? I'm just not seeing enough there to say, oh, wow, that's really compelling. So my 2 cents is she's innocent, or that she there's enough reasonable doubt, I should say.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely think there's reasonable doubt. Do you think she'll testify?
No. I don't think they're going to have her testify.
Yeah, I don't think she really needs to.
I don't think she needs to. I think it will just maybe bite her in the butt a bit.
It can only hurt at this point.
I think that they are seeing her, and they are they're seeing how she is, how she's presenting, and I think that if she started testifying, all you need to do is get caught in not necessarily even a lie, but like a misremembering or this or that. And she, like everybody, she was also drinking. So how do you, how?
That's the thing. I don't think she remembers what happened. So how can you get up there and testify about what happened? She doesn't know.
So, I think they're smart to really, really hone in on all of these inconsistencies and the reasonable doubt, and the fact that, there's too much here to say that this was a by the book case. So,
I mean, Proctor's testimony alone.
That guy.
The end of the story.
How this guy is still.
Why has he not been fired?
Yes.
Actually, do you know what, the day after that testimony, the governor of Massachusetts, her name is, I think, Maura Healey. I think she's I don't know if she's the first, maybe the first female, gay female governor in the country. I'm not sure. Anyway, it doesn't matter. She came out and said, this is disgraceful. Why is he still working? He should be fired immediately.
I thought you were about to tell me, and then she awarded him with some kind of medal. I'm like, oh, Jesus. God. No, good.
Opposite,
I'm glad.
The opposite.
I'm glad. Why is he still working? Yes.
God.
Yes. Any other job? I mean, I don't know if you're a banker or you're right. If you were at Starbucks and someone found out you call your coworker a cunt,
that's grounds for.
I don't know. Isn't that enough? right? People have gotten fired for a lot less. So
yeah.
And just, the confidentiality piece. That a lot. I mean, that is another one. Isn't there? There's got to be a rule. There's got to be a violation there.
There is.
How are you not?
Well, that's like an internal thing. That's like the police department should be disciplining him for that.
Yes,
and the discipline could include being fired.
Mm-hmm. So he should at least be disciplined. He should at least be fired. But
if they don't discipline him at all, then that's really. The fix is in. I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah. And then how do you trust anything?
Yeah.
How do you trust anything? Yeah.
Well, anyway, we are definitely going to be back after the verdict, and we will talk more about what happens in the verdict. And I just think this is a fascinating case. And, I don't know if you're homesick, you're looking for something to do, just start looking into this case. The coverage, the amount of media coverage of this case is crazy.
Yeah, it is. And I definitely think that this is going to be some kind of TV movie. This is going to be some kind
Netflix
of 10-part Ryan Murphy thing. I don't know.
I read that
there's going to be a lot.
Netflix is already something.
Oh, I'm sure, but
unscripted something.
Oh, unscripted. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, oh yeah, definitely documentaries are going to come out, but are they going to do an unscripted? Because there's so many characters. There's so many people, so many characters, so many great roles for people, just much like the OJ case. So,
and we didn't even talk about Turtle Boy.
Oh, I read about Turtle Boy. And that's so bizarre. So he's now in trouble.
He's in trouble for intimidating witnesses, and he's been excluded from the courtroom for certain testimony.
Explain who Turtle Boy is.
Okay, so Turtle Boy is a blogger, YouTube person, I don't know what you want to call him, who before anyone caught wind of this case outside of Massachusetts, he came out very strongly in support of Karen Read. And I think I don't know if he'd gotten some sort of inside information about the Boston police or, whatever was happening. So that really, even before the trial, really ginned up a lot of interest and got people really to look at this cover up. He started the whole cover up idea in the public mind. And so he goes to the trial like every day, but the judges had to put rules on him. And now I think he's been criminally charged with some things. I can't remember what, but he loves it. I mean, he's all into it. And
well, I read that he was being criminally charged. One of the counts was the witness intimidation.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like he would go to places where these witnesses were, or even their kids, like going to their kids, like baseball games and staging protests. He'd bring his followers, and they kind of, it was not cool. He's gone way over the line, but he's just kind of this obsessed person. But he's the person who brought the attention to the public.
I wonder why he calls himself Turtle Boy. That seems a little odd. Like, would you really want to attach yourself to the guys Turtle Boy? I don't know.
Does it have something to do with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Now I'm with you. Sorry. Turtles.
Because, the guy who created that, I think, is from Massachusetts. Because I remember seeing something when I don't know, some statute of the, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know how
Brooke's gone way down.
I don't know how I know that. I don't know. Anyway. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up. And
it's a fascinating case. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. If you've made it this far, thanks for listening. This was a long one.
Yes.
And please, if you're interested in more content, head over to our Patreon, Psych Legal Pop on Patreon. Check out what we have there. And
please write us, a rating review is always helpful, and subscribing is always helpful.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.